Good morning and good afternoon and good evening to all of you. And we're very glad to be back with many of you and also to welcome new people to this second inspiration workshop on using innovative data sources, methods and tools to inform decision making, which is part of a series of inspiration workshops under the Data for Now initiative, implemented by UN Statistics Division, in partnership also with the other three core members of the Data for Now initiative, the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data, apologies, GPSTD, the World Bank, and the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, SDSN Trends. I am Vibeke Österreich-Nielsen. I am an interregional advisor at the UN Statistics Division, and I will be taking you through the agenda of today, introducing the speakers I will be moderating today. And I will be introducing everyone as we move forward. Next slide, please. So the workshop agenda for today is to briefly introduce the Data for Now initiative overall and the project that this inspiration workshop is particularly related to. It's a project that we at UNSD are able to implement with support from the Italian government in terms of funding, and which we will be implementing with the 8 countries, and you are all here today. We will also be introducing workshop objectives, and that will be followed by examples that showcase innovative methods, tools, and sources that will provide insights, hopefully, to improve decision-making at the national level. And then we will end today with a discussion with you countries and partners on available innovative data sources at the national level. Next, please. So very briefly about the Data for Now initiative. It does support countries in the use of innovative sources, technologies, and methods for the streamlined production and dissemination of better, more timely, and disaggregated data for sustainable development. It has a strong focus on prioritizing work that meets user and decision-making needs, and that is what we really discussed last week in the inspiration workshop we had last week. And the two will be combined, and we will discuss a bit more and try and share a bit more on how this can be combined and how it's important to do so. I already mentioned it's co-led by 4 agencies, but partnerships with other members and other countries and other agencies is very important as well. It was launched by the UN Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in September 19. And we initially started working with 8 countries, and we're very pleased that from our side and also from the partner side, we are now able to expand and work with more countries under this Data for Now initiative. The statistics offices are the main partners in countries, but we also engage actively with other partners. And today in this meeting, we have invited you from the national statistical offices, as well as you from resident coordinator offices, as well as some international partners. But of course, we would also need and want to involve a lot of other actors, but this we will do in coordination and in collaboration with you who are here with us today. Next slide, please. So very briefly about the guiding principles that we have put together for the Data for Now initiative that we believe are important for the overall understanding for how we are thinking. You can see the red dot in the middle here that specify that priorities are always identified by the countries. And this is really the first and the main principle, and links back to what I just said. The main counterpart in countries are the national statistics offices, but we need to coordinate with the priorities that the country overall has, and there a number of partners in countries come in. Then we have 4 data principles. We have said, and the focus of today's workshop will be on innovation. Innovation is an important part of the thinking of the Data for Now approach. But since this is part of official statistics, it also needs to be in line with what official statistics is and what US statistics offices and the wider statistical system can produce and publish as statistics. So therefore, we want to have a focus on production-ready solutions. We want to focus on data quality, ensure that the quality is there and is sufficient for implementation and for publishing data. And of course, help ensure that there is a good protection of privacy and confidentiality. And that there is a holistic perspective, that we don't only look at something that we pilot and then we leave it, but rather something that has a long-term goal. On the work approach principles, partnerships are important, knowledge sharing and transparency. We want to do this and help to do this at country level, but we also want to help share information across countries, and a lot of the training materials we hope to make available online so that as many as possible can benefit from the work. And we also want to have a user-centric approach, which also brings me then to the last 2 principles, which are the outcome-oriented ones that focus on sustainability and agile impact and value creation. So all of these come together to define how we are thinking about the Data for Now initiative. And you can see that there is the link of kind of, we need to focus on what the users and the decision makers need, but we want to help do that with innovative methods, data sources, and tools. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Just to reintroduce the series of the inspiration workshops. Many of you were able to join us in the workshop last week. For those of you who weren't and who still would like to see it, we will be sharing the recording and the presentations from that workshop. Today we are discussing innovative methods and tools, and next week we will talk about data architecture and infrastructure, and partnership is something that is coming across all 3. So we are looking forward to today's workshop, and we hope that you are too. We are really looking forward to all the speakers and all the discussions that we will have. And now I will hand over to Faryal Ahmed, who is also a statistician, at the UN Statistics Division, and who will be coordinating a lot of the work that we are doing under this specific project funded by the Italian government. Over to you, Faryal.
Thank you so much, Vibeke, and really happy for everybody who's joined and to participate in this workshop. So I'm quickly going to go over the objective of the workshop, as we've also shared this in the concept note with all of you. So the goal of this workshop is to highlight the potential of innovative approaches, to understand why there's a focus on innovative approaches and why there's a need to implement innovative approaches to address priority data needs, and then increase awareness of some of the non-traditional sources, methods, and tools that have been used. So we have practical examples from countries here who have applied these non-traditional methods, sources, and tools to address data gaps. So we will be hearing about the challenges and what were the roadblocks and how they overcame it, and as well as the processes that they are implementing in order to make it part of the official statistics. And then we have at the end of the workshop also a discussion where we would like to hear from you what you think in your country could be non-traditional sources that are available that could be put to use. So why innovative approaches? Firstly, it uses existing sources of data to produce and disseminate better, more timely and disaggregated data. So we have a plethora of data within the government, the private sector, civil society that in many cases have not been used to full potential. So we want to use what is already available, and with the estimation techniques and different methods to fill the data gaps that are prioritized by countries. And secondly, it allows for integration of non-traditional and traditional data from various entities. So for example, we have a data from a traditional method, for example, census, and household data. So innovative methods allow bringing together non-traditional data sources and integrate them to be able to be used for filling the gaps prioritized by countries. And thirdly, it capitalizes on resources from various entities and new partnerships. And this also links with the previous point. And this also links with the second point, which is allowing integration of traditional and traditional data sources. That is, these data sets can be from various entities. So we capitalize on not only the resources that these entities have, but also bringing them together to integrate that data source that could be beneficial to fill the priority gaps identified by the countries or the policy priorities. And then, as I mentioned, that the link with the official statistics is very important. So, and this also links with the principles that Viveka mentioned of the data for now, where we want to make sure that the implementation is in line with the UN guiding principle of official statistics, following key data quality, privacy, and confidentiality standards. And these are also the data principles for the data for now as well. And also ensuring that we focus on production-ready solutions. So for example, if we have countries, and right now we're working with Colombia and Senegal under the Data for Now umbrella as well, where, for example, Colombia is working on using natural language processing to estimate SDG indicators. So in that process, they're using social media data, primarily Facebook, and then also data coming from Google News to estimate those indicators. So, but this, of course, needs a lot of testing in terms of understanding the quality and how it can be integrated with the official statistics. And we would hear a lot about what the countries are doing when in the rest of the workshop, understanding what methods they're implementing and what are their next plans in terms of integrating in the official statistics as well, if they have reached that point now. So then the link of innovation to address policy priorities. And this is something that I highlighted in my first slide, where I talked about that we need the innovative approaches for timely, disaggregated, and better data. So these are, just to break it down, that innovation allows us to provide more granular data to plan targeted programs and policies. And one of the examples that I would highlight here is using smaller estimation methods to estimate poverty or income or food security at a more granular level, let's say at a district level or municipality level, where the policy priorities can be designed based on those estimates. And then second is enabling measurement of hard-to-count population, and which are sometimes missed out in traditional data collection methods. So for example, reaching out to homeless populations or reaching out to certain migrant populations which were not captured by traditional data collection methods. And in the chat, I will also leave a link of one of the webinars we had in the World Data Forum on innovations on the hard-to-count populations. And of course, we're not limited to these methodologies. This is just a few examples that countries and organizations have used to measure hard-to-count populations. And then thirdly, that it provides data with less time lag for timely decision making. For example, having a household survey, let's say every 2 years or every year, it's not possible for some countries. It's a very cost heavy exercise. So to provide timely estimates, these innovative methods can be used to fill in the gaps for that in order to inform timely decision making or policy priorities, whichever are defined by the countries. And then before we dive into the examples, which are presented by countries, I just wanted to mention a few kind of, breadth of data sources and methods. And these by no means are, an exhaustive list. These are just some ideas that, we've been exploring and also working with countries as well. So for example, using mobile positioning data or cellular data to estimate mobility patterns, or social media to estimate indicators for SDG 16, citizen science to measure environment indicators. Then we have satellite imagery, which can be used to complement traditional data sources. For example, using elevation data or using nighttime lights data that could be used to identify urban and rural pockets in various geographical areas. And that can be complemented with traditional data sources to make estimates, namely being smaller estimation as well. Then using Google Maps traffic data to also, make informed policy decisions as well. And these can be combined with methods such as natural language processing, which could be used, or including web scraping, which could be used to fetch data and process data to make it in more usable formats. And smaller estimation I've already mentioned. And of course, we hear a lot about this in detail as we move forward, when we hear more of the real examples from countries of what challenges and how they went about implementing these methods in their stats offices. So here are a few list of examples that we will hear from today. So we have Colombia talking about use of satellite imagery and geospatial information for education-related indicators. We have Norway, who would be talking about web scraping, the use of web scraping methods to estimate price data to measure inflation. Then we have, this is a mistake from my end, sorry, but we have our colleague from UN Statistics Division who would be talking about the application of smaller estimation to estimate income and poverty, and also share a little bit about the small area kit, smaller estimation kit that UNST has developed in collaboration with contributions from many partners who are working across the world in countries to for guidance on how to implement smaller estimation methods. Then we have Senegal talking about the use of Earth observations for ecosystem accounting. Indonesia, who would be talking about the use of mobile positioning data to estimate tourism statistics, something that they have already implemented in their country. And then Ghana talking about the partnerships that they have had to use citizen-generated data to measure marine litter. So very interesting kind of breadth of examples that we have, and really looking forward to hearing from all of you. For now, I'm going to pass it on to Rebecca for the next session. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you very much, Faryal. We will now then, as Faryal just introduced, be hearing some examples from countries. And I want to check if Karen from Colombia is here. I can't see you in the participants list, but just double checking. Okay, it's early for us in the Americas, so if it's okay with the colleague from Statistics Norway, I would like to ask if Statistics Norway could be the first presenter today.
Yeah, sure. That's
great.
All right.
Thank you. So then I would like to introduce our colleague from Statistics Norway, Mr. Gunnar Larsson, who will be sharing some experiences on web scraping with us. Over to you, Gunnar.
Thank you, Vibeke. I'll just start by sharing the screen. Let's see. Do you see the presentation now?
Not yet.
Okay.
Now it's coming.
Now?
Yes.
Okay, so now you see it?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, okay. So thank you for having me. My name is Gunnar Larsson, and I'm from Statistics Norway. The topic I'm going to present today is web scraping, and I will be presenting a use case for a generalized web scraping tool used in collecting data for the Norwegian Consumer Price Index. So some of the data we use for the CPI now is collected from the web, and collecting data from the websites is quite a manual and time-consuming activity to do manually. So in order to make this collecting more efficient, Statistics Norway has investigated the use of web scraping for some time. First off, I just want to define what web scraping is. And in short, it can be described as the extraction of and transformation of unstructured data from the web into structured data. It's often beneficial to web scrape by using a web scraping tool. And there are some external software tools which you can find online, but it's also possible to create your own in-house solutions, often based on software programs such as R or Python. A benefit of collecting data from the internet by web scraping is a possible increase of efficiency and productivity. So by automating the process of collecting data from the web, it's possible to collect more data in a shorter time compared to manually collecting the data from the websites. One crucial element is that using web scrapers can lead to a shift in tasks. So it's true that the actual collection of data is more efficient, but there are also more resources needed for maintaining the programs, as well as the analysis of the data collected. So I will go into more detail on this later. There is now an increase in countries which are building their own web scrapers, and they develop their own technical solutions. So the benefit of creating an in-house solution is that you have a more direct control over the entire process. So you can make it possible to tweak the program so that it fits your need exactly as you wanted. And one last thing in general about web scraping is that it's important to be mindful of the ethics when you web scrape. So in order to ensure good etiquette when you web scrape, you should always try to not hit the website too often with web scraping sessions, because this can crash the website or potentially cause the website to slow down for other users. So if possible, you should try to web scrape during off-peak hours and not when everyone else is using the website. I would also recommend you to look into the website's terms of use. If it's not specified, or if it is specified on the website that they do not allow web scraping, it's best to leave that website be and try to find some other source instead. So now we have looked at some general specifics of web scraping. Now it's time to look at the Generalized Web Scraper. And this web scraper was developed in-house in Statistics Norway. So our previous experiences with web scraping have been to create a separate web scraper for each specific website we wanted to collect data from. But as we have gained more experience in web scraping, we have now tried to take a more general approach and instead create a generalized web scraper. This is because as we have more experience, we can see that a lot of websites share the similar structure on the website. So it's possible to reuse the same kinds of code for different websites. So as this tool was developed in-house by the Division of Price Statistics, it has been tested on different consumer areas for the CPI. In order to create a more sustainable solution over time, it is recommended to include the IT division as well, although this has not been the case for this web scraping tool. It was built by using Python, and since we already have been collecting data manually from the web for the Norwegian CPI, we knew what kind of data we wanted to collect. So usually the data we want to collect is the name of the product, the price, and also some technical specifications or metadata related to the product. In order to save the data we web scrape from internet, we save the output as in Excel. And afterwards, we mainly use the data to compile price indices for the CPI. There are some pros and cons when it comes to web scraping. So in the case of CPI, it can potentially give you some improved price indices. But the arguments for this are in general and can be applied to all kinds of statistics, because it can lead to you having a larger sample, and you also collect it more efficiently. So this makes it much more efficient than if you have to manually collect each price from the web. And since it's more efficient, it's also possible to web scrape and collect the data more often, for example, once a day, compared to once a month that you would possibly do if you do it manually. There are some downsides to web scraping as well. First off is for generalized web scraping. I would recommend to start on a specific website first in order to learn what to look for on a website and how to gather the data you want. And as you gain more experience, you can try to make a more generalized web scraper. And one important aspect of web scraping is that websites, they tend to change structure over time. And this can lead to quite time-consuming maintenance in order to get the web scraper up and running, in order to get the data you want. Yeah. So finally, I will demonstrate the web scraper by collecting price data for sewing machines. So first, I will just tell you what we actually want to collect by this session. On the left side of the picture, you can see multiple sewing machines for one internet store. And we want to collect the product name marked in green, but also the prices, which is marked in red. On the right side of the picture, you can see some lines of code, and this is called HTML code and is the code that makes the website look and act as it does. So all the information we want is defined inside the HTML code. So by having located where in the HTML code we want to collect the product name as well as the price, we have all the specifications we need in order to get the web scraper collect the data we want. So now I will just open the web scraper. And here you can see I have defined already some aspects in the HTML code. So I have defined where in the information on the website I want to collect the product name as well as the price. So here you have the product name, some specifications, And also you have price, which you can see also on the picture behind. So now I will just run the web scraper, and while I run this, it goes through every item on the website and collects name and the corresponding price. So as this web scraper runs, I will just, let's see. Okay, so here we see that the web scraping is done, and we can look at the output of the web scraping session. So here on, let's see. Here you can see that we have collected. There are a total of 17 products on this website. And here we have collected the product name as well as the corresponding price for each item. So that was a small demonstration of the actual web scraper. So thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Gunnar. This is very interesting and very helpful. Also to share with everyone that Statistics Norway is also an active contributor to the Data for Now initiative, and will be working jointly with us at UNSD and other partners in countries. Some of you are already very familiar with Statistics Norway, having worked with them for many years, and I hope more of you will get a chance moving forward. So maybe some of you will see Gunnar or his colleagues in your countries moving forward. Thanks so much. And I hope you can stay for the Q&A just after our second presentation. Yes, and I see that, thank you. And I see that Karen Chavez from DANE, the Statistics Office in Colombia, has joined us. And I would like to hand over to you, Karen, for your presentation. Karen is representing the team in DANE that has been working with us under the Data for Now umbrella now for 2 years. And she will be presenting some of the work that we have been doing together. So this is an example of some of the things that already have been done under the Data for Now umbrella. And it's really been DANE that has led the work and coordinated the work. We have mainly contributed with some experts that have helped train and provided some external knowledge. So with this, over to you, Karen.
Okay, thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, probably to everyone, depending on when you are in the world. My name is Karen, as was mentioned by Vivek. Many thanks for the opportunity to share our experience in this particularly exercise. And before starting, I would just like to confirm first, if you are hearing me well, and second, if you are seeing my screen now.
Both is correct from my end, at least, Karen.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, we have defined in the framework of the Data for Now strategy diverse areas of work. One of those areas of work was for SDG 4, education. And here we defined previously 2 goals. One of the goals was the analysis of accessibility to educational center. And the main result that we have up to this point is a document that summarizes a first analysis in the existing relationship between the home to school distances and dropout rates in urban areas of students from 5 to 17 years old during 2018 and 2020. And this exercise was based on the integration of 3 data sources. This document is currently published in our website. We publish the methodology, and also we did some, again, initial analysis. And first, I would like to highlight that this analysis was a priority established by the Ministry of Education. They are very aware of the coverage of coverage rate of education in Colombia, and also they were interested in exploring how the distances from home to school were, and also they would like to know if there is an initial, at least, relationship between the distances of students from home to school and the dropout rates. So that's why we did it, and we decide to do this analysis. I'm just going to mention here that we have this line of statistical briefs, and in the National Statistics Office, we are publishing things a little bit more than what is published in a statistical operation. We are choosing one issue or one topic considered to be of public interest, and we are working to put in just one document all the data available from diverse statistical operations in the same document, and also try to provide an initial analysis of the data. This is also in order to enhance the use of data for the decisions. In this case, we use distance metrics just in length units. We also know that there could be distance metrics in terms of time, etc. But in this case, we just used length units. And we explore 3 metrics: the Euclidean, the Manhattan, and the routing method. And for example, in this particular exercise of calculating distance, it was key, the support from the consultant that we had under the Data for Now strategy. He mainly support us and teach us, team, how to compute these metrics, these diverse metrics, and the algorithms that we could use. Also, we have, of course, some coverage challenges when merging the data. And I'm going to explain a little bit more in the next slide about the data that we used for the exercise. And as outputs, we got first some initial statistics, like basic, median, and mean distances at municipality level. And also we did some couplet maps with the mean and medians of the distance and the dropout rates by distance deciles, in order to make a first check on the correlation, at least, again, between distance and dropout rates. The statistical unit that was used for this exercise were students between 5 and 17 years old, enrolled between grade 0 and grade 11. That is up to this point, that here in Colombia, until the grade 11, that you end the school. And we focus here in the urban sector. Why? It was mainly because of the merge exercise, that we still have some challenge in rural areas. So the results that we get are not still representative in rural areas. And mainly because the Statistical Directory of Educational Centers it was uploaded, but still we have some challenges to geolocate all the educational centers in rural areas here in Colombia. And here in this slide, you could see the 3 main databases that we used. So first, the National Population and Housing Census from 2018. Why we use this source of information? Because from this data source, you have the geolocation of the child's home. Yeah. And we also use the, in Spanish, is by its acronym CIMAT. That is the administrative record of the Ministry of Education, who has the information of all students enrolled in formal education. And from the CIMAT, you have all the students. And then we use from DANE, the Statistical Directory of Educational Center, again, by its acronym in Spanish, DIREDU, and it was to geolocate the educational centers. We, of course, that makes some data cleaning. So we duplicate things in terms of year, type, ID type, and ID number. Children between 5 and 17 years old were selected. That is almost 90% of the total sample. And we also make like an additional adjustment. Usually education in Colombia is compulsory by law between the ages of 5 and 15. However, from the initial analysis of CIMAT, we saw that at the ages of 16 and 17, we have still high enrollment rates, so we decide to also include students in ages from 16 to 17. And also we use students enrolled in grades from 0 to 11. Also, we consider just schools registered in formal educational centers. That is like 80% of the total sample. That this is actually due to coverage issues and limitations. Again, this study focuses only on urban areas. Finally, observations with missing information for the Euclidean distance and those calculations that exceeded 100 kilometers were deleted. We just like use this cutoff point of 100 kilometers to exclude some potential mistakes when putting all the data together, because it's not probably that one student is living 100 kilometers beyond that his or her home. The results, mainly in 2020, the gross coverage rate in education at national level was 74.9% for the population, again, between 5 and 17 years old of age. And for this year, and since we are focusing on urban areas, we had a coverage of 83.1%, and this represents a decrease of 0.2% with respect to the previous year, that was 2019. Also between 2018 and 2020, the school dropout rate was 2.5 in urban areas, and the difference between official and non-official schools range between 0.5 and 1% in favor of official schools. Again, we use 3 different metrics of distances: the Euclidean, the Manhattan, and the routing method. The Euclidean is the traditional one that is just measuring the distance between 2 points as the length of the red line that is uniting those points. The Manhattan is the one that calculates the best as the minimum distance between the 2 points and is not necessarily aligned. And routing, you are calculating the best distances in best and understood as the minimum distance by dividing the total route by graph, and then you calculate in each point the minimum distance. The routing exercise needs more data, so it was the metric that has the least data in terms of coverage, because again, it needs more data to be calculated, but we just use as a reference and also to compare the Euclidean and the Manhattan. Another thing is that traditionally we use here in Colombia a model of elevation of the earth when we are using satellite imagery, and this was not used in this case, mainly because we are focusing on urban areas, and this model of earth elevation is most for rural areas. So that's another thing to take into account. And because we usually, when we expose the exercise from satellite imagery, mention this model of earth elevation, also considering the nature here in Colombia and the diverse soils that we have here. Another another results. 2.6 kilometers, under Euclidean metric. For 2018, 3 kilometers in terms of means. For 2019, and 4 kilometers for, and this is a mistake, and the last one is 2020. And we also have the Manhattan metric with a higher average than the Euclidean metric for each year. We also classify the results in terms of distance by department. We were able to look where we have more distances and where our distances are shorter. And we also saw that the dropout rates rises from 1.4 to 2.1 among distance quintiles 1 and 5 for official schools. In the analysis of the dropout rate, we focuses mainly on official schools, because here in Colombia, non-official schools are usually outside of the city. And in non-official schools, there is less likely that you have a high dropout rate. And also because this is from the Ministry of Education point of view, that they are more aware in terms of the official schools. And currently in Colombia, we do not have like an algorithm or, for example, a market design study to assign students to schools in official schools. And this is something to be aware, because in the case of official schools, people is not or have not the resources always to transmute and to compute. So that's why we also focus this part of the analysis on just official schools. And what we did is have this approach by quintiles of distance and try to look how it was changing when you advance in the quintile of the distance, and also checking what was going on with the dropout rates. And that's our main results. And thanks for your attention, and over back to you, Vivek.
Thank you so much for sharing this this experience and this work, Karen. It's another very interesting example of what can be done in the sphere of innovation. I want to open the floor now for some questions and answers and discussion related to the two presentations that we've heard from Norway and Colombia. So please feel free to either put your question in the chat, or to just unmute yourself and ask your question. While we wait for people to come forward, I'll also reconfirm what has been exchanged in the chat. We will also today share both the recording and all the presentations in the next couple of days and weeks. We will both share them with you per email, as well as putting them on our websites. Please go ahead. Is it Elise, if I could pronounce it correctly? Asmi Elise, Elias. If you want to unmute yourself, please go ahead.
Do you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
I do. Yep.
Thank you. Just two little question for the example of CPI from Norway. I just want to know first which kind of product each collected, the price is collected with the scraping method. Do you collect all product or some product? And can you have a rate of this product from the total of price collected for the CPI? The second question, how do you connect this information or join this data with the classification, COICOP classification, which is specific to CPI? And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elise. To answer your first question, for the generalized web scraper, we are currently in a test phase where we test on different products that we have manually collected before. So sewing machines is one of the examples, and then another example are pianos. We web scrape everything from each website that we web scrape from. For sewing machines, I think it's maybe 6 different websites. And from that data we collect, we then choose some products to follow over time. We also web scrape for electronic video games. And here we web scrape the top 100 most sold products every day. And for each month, we collect all the data and analyze it over time. So there we have not like a link between products in the same way. And what was your second question?
How do you link this information with the COICOP classification, which is specific to CPI?
For the products that we web scrape from now, that is the only source of data we use. So we have gone from we still used data from the web before, but now we instead web scrape all the data that we previously collected manually. So we don't connect different kinds of data for example, sewing machines. Here we only collect data from the web. We don't, as of yet, combine web scrape data with more traditional data collecting. So as of now, it's separate.
So you have two CPI. You calculate two CPI.
No, we don't calculate.
How you merge the two data? How do you merge? Finally, you need only one CPI index. How you merge the two type of index of data? I don't know. It's not clear for me.
Okay, so for sewing machines, by using the web scrape data, we create a price index, and that price index is included in the more traditional way of measuring the total CPI. So it goes into the traditional way after measuring the price index.
Okay, thank you.
I see we have Randi, who's also put her hand up. Is there something you would want to add to this, Randi?
Yes, thank you, Vibeke, and thank you, Esme, for your interesting question. I just want to clarify if I may have misunderstood your question, but I just want to clarify that all products that are part of the CPI has in advance a given COICOP code we have a kind of a catalog. So that means that sewing machines and video games, etc., they already have the COICOP codes. So what Gunnar was trying to say that in this case, for sewing machines and video games, we only use web scrapes data, but for other items in the CPI, we may use questionnaires in combination with transaction data, etc. And in those cases, we may calculate 2 indices that we weigh together, but all indices, as soon as we have a price relative and we make an index, this index will be given the COICOP code by the way that we have formed our production system. So as soon as we start to aggregate, we have already given the index and COICOP code. So this is a part of the classification system. So it's really a part of the aggregation, not the web scraping. The sewing machine has already been given a COICOP code. Thank you.
Thank you for clarification. It's clear.
Thank you. I also see another question in the chat that is asking, what is the limitation of using the general web scraper?
Yeah, sure. The limitation is that the website, all the information you need needs to be available as soon as you open the website. So if you have to, for example, click a button in order to show more products, if it only shows 10 products, but in reality it's 200, you will only collect those first 10 prices. So that is a more complex structure of different websites. So we have some other web scrapers that can handle those kinds of tasks, but as of yet we have not included this in the generalized web scraper. So I think that will be like the biggest limitation of using a more generalized web scraper.
Thank you. There's also another question on whether the web scraper is free of charge or whether there's a license that needs to be purchased.
That depends on what kind of web scraper you want. If you want a more pre-built external software that's available online, usually you have to pay in order to use that. For Statistics Norway, we have developed them in-house, so we developed them ourselves. So by using Python, which is free of charge, there are no costs, direct costs related to the actual web scraping program.
Thank you. And I also see some questions on whether Statistics Norway can provide the trainings on web scraping. And I think we have to come back to that and discuss with Statistics Norway colleagues, also through the coordination entity. But I think you've created a lot of interest around what you're doing, and thank you so much again for sharing.
Thank you.
I also see a question for Karen. And the question is that the Euclidean and Manhattan metrics are new to the colleague Nene, and she's wondering if you can explain a little bit more what they are.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much for the question. First, the Euclidean distance is, and I'm just going to quickly try to check. The Euclidean distance is basically the traditional one, and in this metric, you just measure the distance between 2 points by tracing a line between those points. Yeah, and for the case of the Manhattan, you calculate the distance between the 2 points as the sum of the absolute differences of its coordinates. Yeah. So basically, well, I think that's it. And I'm just going to share again the screen to, and as an example, and I think that's something that is in graphic sometimes is easier to understand. So the Euclidean is the first one. Again, you measure the distance between these 2 points, and you just make a line, and you measure the length of this line. That's the Euclidean. And then the Manhattan distance, you have again the 2 points, but then you calculate the distance as the sum of the absolute differences between the coordinates. That is the sum of this length and the sum of this length. And then we have the routing, but again, this requires a little more of data, and also depends on another factors, because you need to divide your total route by subroutes. And in each subroute, you want to calculate the minimum route and the minimum distance. And in this minimum, there are also another algorithms and elements involved, but that's are basically the 3 methods that we used.
Thank you so much, Karen. I see there's one other question for you, and I'll close the Q&A for this part of the workshop after that. And the question is, what is the main plan going forward in scaling up this approach?
The main plan in scaling this approach, well, in DANE, first, is that we already have these algorithms for calculating metrics that could be used to calculate distances in any other case that we want, basically. Second, that was the first time that we did the integration in all these databases. And also, since mainly the one from the Ministry of Education, CIMAT, since this is not an statistical register, but an administrative record, all the cleaning of the data and the analysis, the statistical analysis of consistencies of this record is also going to be very useful for another exercise, and also to combine CIMAT not only with the census but with another surveys. Another thing, and this is also in the terms of the integration that we did, and I did not mention that much here, but we also have a cross-cutting strategy of IT infrastructure. And it was the first time that we test a lake and a IT infrastructure that we built also in the framework of the Data for Now strategy. So we also tested how this lake worked. So this IT infrastructure actually worked very well. So now we are going to use the same infrastructure to interoperate another data sources. What left to be done? Still we have again the challenge in the rural areas, and in the terms of leave no one behind, since coverage rates in education are higher in urban areas than rural areas. We are still very interested in see what's going on with rural areas, or what more can we do. Because again, the main challenge here is to geolocate the educational centers in rural areas. It's not quite easy to do it. And the satellite imagery that we currently have still does not allow to identify properly these educational centers in rural areas. Also because there is now a specific differentiation between these educational centers and other homes in rural areas, because are quite small. And finally, we also make this document, we publish and share it with the Ministry of Education, also with UNICEF Colombia. This document was recently published. It was published 2 days ago, but we want to enhance some conversations around this. And actually, we have seen already some documents from academia and other people that are analyzing these first results. And also we are thinking into translate this document because it's currently just in Spanish. So the exercise could also be at least replicate or checked in another countries, because the document describes like in the detail the methodology used by this, for example, for these metrics. So that's in terms of scaling.
Thank you, Karen. And maybe also something that it's worth coming back to from what we have shared from our side in the beginning at a more general level is that today's workshop is an inspiration workshop to give ideas of what are the different possibilities when it comes to innovation and use of various methods and tools. With you who are here as our project countries, we will discuss with you and jointly with your users and decision makers what are the main priorities in terms of data needs, and then we will look at which are the most appropriate methods. So we still have a process ahead of us in deciding, but there may already be some very useful ideas for you here, and maybe you could use some of these things on other areas that relate to the priorities that you have in countries. Thank you again so much to the colleagues from Statistics Norway and from DANE Colombia. I would now move on to the second part of our innovation examples. And I would like to hand over to my colleague from UN Statistics Division, Mrs. Howie Chen, who will be talking with us about small area estimation.
Thank you, Rebecca. Let me share my screen. Can you see it? Let me make it full mode.
Yes, I can see it.
How about this?
Perfect.
All right, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Howie Chen. I'm the coordinator for the Intersecretarial Working Group on Household Surveys. So I'll be talking about using small estimation for SDGs. Quickly, this is the outline. I will quickly go through the Intersecretarial Working Group on Household Surveys and the IEG SDGs and why, then why we're using small estimation and what is it, what are the key elements, with some examples, and then a bit about the toolkit the UNSD has developed using small estimation for SDG indicators. And in the end, there are some capacity building activities we have already planned. So the Intersecretarial Working Group on Household Surveys was established in 2015 under the aegis of UNSD with three key main objectives. One is to improve coordination of household surveys at the national, regional, and international level. The second one is really to advance cross-cutting survey methodology to improve data availability and timeliness and quality. So smart estimation falls under this specific objective. And the last one is to enhance communication advocacy, really advocate for the importance of household surveys, even though it's always considered or often considered as a traditional, non-innovative data source, but there has been a lot of new methods around, and we are there to advocate for the new methods and also still the importance of household surveys. And so currently the group has 11 international agencies as member and 8 member states. UNSD is the secretariat, and the group is currently chaired by the World Bank and UN Women. So when the group works on the substantive matters, we form task forces. They're often led by or with contributions from members and non-member experts. So our next 2 topics that we are going to be focusing on, one is inclusiveness and the other one is data integration. So smart estimation is is actually a way of data integrating survey data with other data sources. So I'm not going to talk about IEG SDGs since all of you know so well about it. The reason is here is because this group is really, this work is part of the IEG SDG workstream on data disaggregation. So it's a UNSD product and really under both the Intersecretary Working Group Household Surveys and the IEG SDGs. So why do we need smart estimation? It's really to fulfill the leave no one behind edge under the SDGs, to have more disaggregated data. Using survey alone will not fulfill the level of disaggregation that's required. It could either be geographic or for smaller population groups. That, for example, we've seen for this, people with disabilities or with other smaller smaller population group are difficult to capture, and smart estimation can be very useful. Yeah, so these are some of the. So smart estimation is really, it's a way of modeling. So it's model-based estimates to borrow strength from other data sources. I will cover a bit more on that. So it's really an integration of household survey with other data sources. So this was the framework for, sorry, I was just looking at whether I'm looking at the right one of PowerPoint. Can you hold this? Sorry, let me pause for a little bit. Oh no, wait, sorry. Can I? This was the wrong version. No wonder. Apologies. Yeah, this is the right one. Yes, okay. So I'm just putting a framework for producing smart estimation here, and more information is available from our toolkit, the UNSD Smart Estimation Toolkit. But basically, this demonstrates the flows of how to work. You identify user needs and then see what are really needed, what kind of data you need to produce, and what level of disaggregation, and then look for data sources, and then with the modeling, it's actually a very iterative approach. You need to find the model that works well, and then eventually that feeds back to the data user needs. So why are countries here? I'm putting down some examples from countries on why they move ahead with smart estimation. The data are really used for key policies and funding decisions. There are the example from Colombia, that under the Colombia National Development Plan that made a mandatory redesign of a national monetary transfer program. So, and the transfer will go to population in poverty and extreme poverty. So that this requires data at the municipal level. That's why the household survey could not provide data at this lower geographic level. Is why smart estimation is the method is being used. Similarly for Chile, it's also really for transfer and support funding to comunas, and they would need data for all comunas, and which is a very small geographic location area that has to use a data integration with the survey and then another data source. I'll talk about data source. And so both of these case studies are for poverty. And if you look at Indonesia, Indonesia is a very big country, and then it has thousands of islands. And so it's not possible for them to really have data for each of the island. They had to use small SAs, smaller estimation for many indicators. And so Indonesia has a work plan really for the next 5 years to gradually develop methods and estimates for different SDG indicators. And then same for Jamaica, and then US. It's been a while that they started to really transfer fund for a school district, and the government needs estimates or data for on poverty for families and children's poverty for each school district. That's how smart estimation or the famous SAPE program started. So what kind of data that country has been using? In Chile, it's really the survey. It's a cross-sectional multipurpose household survey. They call CASEN, and then together with data from the administrative level, the communal level administrative data. Colombia, it's the integration of household survey data with population census. Indonesia uses survey data with another source called village potential statistics. It's a data collection at village level, but does not cover the indicators that the government needs. So that's how they actually integrate the two sources together. And Jamaica is also survey and census. And the US, it has transformed over so many years. At this moment, is really the two major household surveys, national annual household surveys in the country, together with a number of administrative data sources. So what does smart estimation give us? And this is example. We have a lot of examples on the wiki toolkit. It's really to give you the estimates for smaller geographic areas, smaller population groups with less variances and less coefficient variation here. If you see the slide on the right. So better estimates, narrower confidence intervals, more reliable estimates, that means, and then and without really spending a lot of funding to carry out surveys, which is actually not possible to do survey at that geographic level to cover. So now I'm going to quickly go through what we have done with the toolkit. We have host a lot of, it's really pulling together a lot of resources on small estimation and methods, but most importantly, we offer really practical guidance and country case studies. So we work with more than 10 countries and then record what they've done, what are the challenges, and for countries that have done smart estimation and to produce official statistics. And then we asked what are lesson learned and what are the success stories? How did you make it? Because it's actually it's model estimate based estimate. So there has been a lot of challenges in different aspects in terms of financial resources, in terms of technical capacity, and in terms of acceptance to model-based estimates at national statistical offices. So we have a page that really specifically talk about the challenges countries face. And so that's why we're talking to countries, how they, who did it, that did successfully using smart estimation, how did they really make the move from doing an experiment? And this is what most countries have been doing, is one experimentation and that's about it. And then how did they really move to the official data production? Okay, so this is guiding through. We have test data online, and then you can practice with the methods and with our code you can use. And we have case studies under different SDG goals, because this is for SDGs, and we don't have for all goals yet, but we are still adding them on. And then this is the challenge page, and then enabling environment, what's important. For example, if you look at the first bullet under enabling environment, the objectives, why do you need it? And this is really important for you to get financial resource and support from countries or from your government to do this kind of exercise. And then we talk about maybe how big the team needs to be and who do you need to collaborate with. And if you're looking for capacity building support, what's a good modality for doing that? Wait, okay, now I'm not going. So feel free to look, these are some of the challenges, and feel free to browse through the slides. I'm not going to talk about them, but they're also on the wiki site. And we have a lot of national examples, and you will be able to see what Indonesia has done, what US has done, what Colombia and Chile and what other countries have done in there. Yes, and so And then we also have covered what international agencies have done. We're still gathering more information from other agencies. Now, the toolkit has gone through a lot of consultations, so I'm not going to cover this, but next steps, we have, in collaboration with ECLAC and UNFPA, we are developing a set of e-learning courses, or one e-learning courses with a lot of videos, small, short videos in 10 modules. And so once that's completed, it will be available freely to the public. And then we'll be also organizing guided learning sessions. So there will be a tutor, a professor guiding all the students going through the e-learning courses, also offer hands-on guidance on programming and providing grades for the projects that are assigned under the e-learning. That's all from my side. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Howie. And we'll again have a second presentation before we move to the Q&A, but you can already start thinking about your question and also put them in the chat. Our next presentation will be from Senegal, and the speakers will speak in French. So we will have interpretation with the great support from our GPSTD colleague, Francois Camano. So you will see that you will now get an option to choose either French or English. If you want to listen to the speakers in French, you just stay. But if you want to have it in English, you have to make an active move there. And with that, I would like to introduce the two colleagues that will share information and learning around the Earth observation data for ecosystem accounting. The two colleagues are Gora Mbenge, who is from the Ministry of Environment, and Mouhamadou Bassirou Diop from the ANSD, that is the Statistics Office in Senegal. Over to you.
Bonjour tout le monde. Je m'appelle Mouhamadou Bassirou Diouf. Je suis statisticien comptable national à l'Agence nationale de la statistique et de la démographie du Sénégal. Donc, merci de nous avoir donné cette opportunité pour présenter l'utilisation des données.
INSD, thank you for giving us this chance for us to talk about the ecosystem accounting, economic accounting in Senegal. This presentation is going to be by myself and Gora from the Ministry of Environment in Senegal. Our presentation is structured this way.
Dans une perspective de développement durable. Et pour une bonne politique environnementale au Sénégal, il a été jugé nécessaire de mettre en œuvre le système de comptabilité économique et environnementale, qui est un instrument au service de développement durable qui consiste à tenir compte à la fois des questions de développement économique et du respect de l'environnement. C'est ainsi qu'un protocole d'accord a été signé entre l'Agence nationale de la statistique et de la démographie et le ministère de l'Environnement et du Développement durable, dans un premier temps, d'évaluer la contribution de l'environnement au PIB et élaborer quelques comptes économiques et environnementaux. Donc, il a été retenu au Sénégal d'élaborer 5 comptes de compte en se basant sur les préoccupations nationales et la disponibilité des données requises. Donc, il s'agit du compte de la forêt et des ressources en bois, du compte de la couverture des terres et exploitation du sol, du compte de la ressource en eau, utilisation de l'eau, le compte de la dépense de protection de l'environnement et le compte des biens et services environnementaux. Donc, s'agissant des parties prenantes, un comité technique a été mis en place au Sénégal, composé d'une équipe multidisciplinaire.
Based on this,
il
the
s'agit
technical
des
committee was
directions
then set up
et
in
des
place,
agences nationales,
made up with
des différentes directions
and
du ministère de
national
l'Environnement et du
agencies
Développement durable. Et
regarding
pour
the Ministry of Environment and
la conduite
Sustainable
des travaux,
Development.
nous avons été
To start the
accompagnés
work,
par la
we have benefited the
la
support
Commission économique pour
from
l'AFRIQUE,
UNECA.
Il y a aussi
We got
la
the
FAO
support
qui
from
nous a
them.
accompagnés et
And then FAO
la
also
division
supported
des
us,
statistiques des Nations Unies.
and also UNSD also supported us on this.
Pour les sources de données, donc dans le cadre de l'élaboration du code de la forêt, donc nous avons utilisé les données de la direction des eaux et forêts, chasse et conservation du sol et les données issues des travaux d'élaboration des constitutions du Sénégal. Donc pour
we use the data from the landscape directory.
Donc nous avons utilisé les cartes d'occupation du sol de l'Agence nationale de l'aménagement du territoire et du centre de suivi écologique.
Et
ces cartes sont caractérisées par 19 classes d'occupation du sol dans un format
characterized.
On a des problèmes avec la traduction, c'est pas dans le channel où il doit être. Si vous pouvez nous donner une minute pour changer. Oui.
D'accord.
On a fait une erreur à notre côté. Si nous pouvons nous arrêter pendant une minute, on va le mettre en place. So I just asked the speakers now to take a brief break because we hear that there is a little bit of difficulties hearing the English because everyone hears the French at the same time. So we're trying to fix it now. Wait. I will ask Farial or Richard to come in and tell us when they're ready, when it's fixed.
Richard, are we good to go?
Hello, are we good to go?
I think there's still some challenges. Just give us another second or two.
Yeah, I can hear Farial was talking on the other channel. So yeah, she was saying that we are good to go. So.
Okay, we're good to go. Please go ahead. Vous pouvez continuer.
So regarding the data source, we have used a map that was been produced by the National Landscape Directory, and those map has shown the land cover. Regarding the land cover mapping, this is a work in progress together with INSD. Regarding our project on the environmental data in Africa and Asia. To start with the ecosystem accounting, we need to start with the land cover. So we are using the platform. So we are using areas local for us to produce those data. And together at the Directory of Landscape, we are working on using these tools for us to produce this data in Senegal. The objective is for us to produce a map that are showing the land cover. Regarding the economic and environmental accounts of forest and wood resources, they were carried out. They were carried out with the financial support of the United Nations for Africa and the technical support of the FAO and also the CEA. regarding the ecosystem accounting. And we're going to use this tool to integrate this in the national accounting. And we will also work on the land extension. And we are going to compile this and also show the contribution of ecosystem services to the production of value added of different industries and the economics as a whole. We are also going to identify the share of economic-wide value added that depends on the provision of ecosystem services. We will see to understand the main users of ecosystem services and the relative contribution of ecosystem services to household and government. Regarding the challenges, we have been confronted by the absence of up-to-date data on wood resources because the latest forest inventory is dating was done in 2004. We are also confronted with difficulties for the full accounting of timber flow, in particular removals. There's an absence of up-to-date land cover map. There's also a lack of ecosystem classification with metadata. And we also have constraints regarding the periodic realization of a forest inventory. In the absence of inventories we also have challenges in strengthening the use of permanent plots to update forest cover. And I'm going to give a chance to Gora to come in. Thank you so much, Bashiru. As a follow-up of my presentation from my INS, I'm going to do some presentation on the use of data cube. We have set up a technical working group for the monitoring of environmental data in Senegal. So this is the reason why I am here. As you know, SDG is a universal development agenda. So for us to implement the SDGs, it is important to consider this at national level, even at international level, and also in Senegal, the findings is that we have a low level of information on the environment sector's SDG indicators. So as you see on this presentation, there was a need to develop a multi-sectoral approach for the information of these indicators because this data is lacking. So the challenge is how to really have a framework into place to have a multi-dimensional approaches to set up this together with all key stakeholders that we needed to work together. That's why we decided with EPA, and the Ministry of Environment for us to launch a national platform of all key stakeholders who are monitoring the SDG regarding environment in Senegal. So this platform was launched. This platform was launched. This platform was launched in 2019, bringing together all key stakeholders. As part of this platform, a committee was a technical coordination committee was put into place. So this technical committee has developed a partnership with GPSDD and with the support of the Islamic Development Bank. This helps us to build our capacity by using the tool, the ARDC, the data cube, for to produce Earth observation data. This for us to be able to produce a map and also produce data by using this one. For us to be able to inform the SDGs regarding sustainable development data. It's at that point that GPSDT and with the implication of other institutions help us to work and producing this data. The challenge regarding this was the development of intersectorial and collaboration to have reliable, quality, and disaggregated data for decision making. That's why the establishment of the technical multi-sectoral committee within the platform was useful with the support of GPSTD. In the first one, we identify 8 pilot indicators that we needed to fill in from the data cube and compare with the real data to correct the algorithm. And we did the classification of these indicators according to the theme covered by the data cube. We also developed a manual for common understanding of the profile and indicators analysis sheet. This was developed, and we developed also indicators profile sheet and indicators analysis sheet. In terms of impact, and we have the following impact were produced: an improvement in the level of information at the national level for 25% of the indicators, 47 improvement in the understanding of the indicators and their calculation methodologies at the national and international level. We have also improved data disaggregation with localized data for some indicators. So in terms of the result, we were able to also produce data and regarding the forest cover. So this graphic is showing the level of the level of forest loss and also the level of data disaggregations. And this help to be used for a sustainable management of resources. But there are a lot of efforts that are needed to be put in place. We also have some localized data that we were able to produce by using the data cube, and they were then disaggregated for some regions, like the north side of Senegal, where we have a forest. So this graphic is showing the result. At national level, we also found that there is there's data disaggregation at the national level. So in conclusion, this has helped us to really draw the attention of decision makers for them to act as an emergency situation, for them to act. This is what we wanted to share with you. Thank you for your attention. I can hear you on my side here. Thank you.
Yes, Rebecca, I can hear you.
Perfect. So thank you very much to our 2 speakers from Senegal, and also to Francois from GPSTD for translating. And this example from Senegal is really also something we're very happy about. It's under the Data for Now initiative. Senegal has been working both with us at UNSD and with the GPSTD on these environmental indicators. So it showcases how we as partners in country and internationally can work together. And I would now like to hand over to another colleague from GPSTD, Victor Ohorubo, who will be chairing this Q&A session with or focusing on the smaller estimation work and the environmental accounting work. So over to you, Victor.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Thanks again to our three presenters. That was quite inspiring, seeing the innovations that have been employed at national level to address gaps in data for specific issues. So he will open it up for questions and reflections. You may want to note your questions in the chat function, or perhaps raise your hand to post a question to the colleagues who have just submitted their intervention. Very quickly to Chen at the UNSD. I know that one of the challenges you did highlight was the issue of quality, if I'm right, in the using of the SAE methods for either estimating poverty or some other issues. Is there a quality assurance framework that has been put in place that can help nations that are hoping to adopt the SAE method and that they can take and use to enable them to strengthen the quality of the approach that they have taken on using the SAE method? Yeah, so we could start with you on that, and I think Omar is on this particular call as well. Omar, sorry, I'm going to have to put you on a hot seat. Perhaps have your reflections also.
So should I take the question?
Yeah,
right
please,
now?
Chen, over to you.
Yes. No, so we do have a big section on quality assessment, because but of course the input data is data has to start from the input data, and when you need to have relatively good quality for the data that go into the smart estimation modeling. And then there will be a quality assessment after. So that's why I was mentioning about the iterative approach. So it might not work well, and you have to adjust certain things. And it is a model-based estimates, right? So there are a lot of assumptions. So and assumptions are there to be violated. So what's going to happen if the normal assumptions does not hold? What do you do? So our colleagues from Indonesia actually are currently dealing with that, because the models they've been using do not really fit the normal assumption for the methods. So there are transformations. So we do cover that on the toolkit. So please, the colleagues and countries, and feel free to reach out to us. Take a look at the toolkit. I didn't put it. I'll put the link online under the chat. And also sometimes it's really I think it needs, like the Indonesia case, we are actually calling technical meetings for experts to help them. Because it really depends on the data source, on the data that come in. So on the indicator you're working on that produce estimates for. So it's really case by case cases, so that has to be dealt with. But there are a lot of discussion about quality. And I actually cut a slide about the requirement on coefficient variation. Countries tend to have their own criteria in calculating it. Whether it's above 0.15, then they're not going to show the results, that the results will not be used. So they are slightly different. I had a slide from the other presentation, but I didn't cover that today. But there has been a lot of discussion. There is a lot of discussion on under the toolkit, in the toolkit.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Chen. I'm still waiting for you to raise your hands if you have questions you want to ask Chen. Just one more question while we are waiting for anyone who wants to throw in a question. Chen, so how would the intersecretariat working group assist nations who want to deploy the SAE? Is the SAE an open toolkit, and what's the process to accessing the toolkit for use? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, the toolkit is completely open. I'm going to put a link It's open for access for everyone. And if countries are interested in contributing your case studies or your experiences, and we'll be happy to work with you and put your experience under the toolkit. It's on the wiki platform, so it's really a collaborative output. And another, I mean, our group is of course there and same as IAGs to support countries, and especially for some of the technical discussions, we can really call on to a lot of experts we've been working with from different discipline, from academic and from other countries to support. But this is also one of the reasons that why we are here is Data for Now is really there to support countries here in the room and on smart estimation if our countries here are very much interested in moving ahead on this. And I think this is really the right
Awesome.
context.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I'm going to ask, I know that Omar and his team at the Ghana Statistical Service, is also trying to advance the work on small area estimation. Perhaps you may have some reflections to share in terms of, how you're sourcing, data that could be used on top of that method. What are the key challenges that you're faced with? Just so that other nations listening also can learn from your approach, in addition to what Chen has just shared. Omar, if you don't mind.
I think my colleague Vitus is on the call. So Vitus, kindly pick that. I'll be making a presentation shortly. So
okay, awesome. Thank you. Vitus?
Hello.
Yeah, hi, Vitus. Please go ahead.
Can you take the question again? Sorry.
We're just hoping to hear from the Ghanaian experience, the work that the GSS is trying to advance on the use of the SAE method, particularly for estimating poverty at the district level. What are some of the learnings, the challenges, where you're sourcing your data from, just so that other nations that are on this particular call could also learn from your experience. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, with the data source, I would say with the poverty mapping data we are currently trying to use for this small area mapping is from usually from the Ghana Living Standard Survey, because most of the indicators or questions that are related to issues relating to poverty are found in this survey. With the current census we just finished, we're also thinking of coming out with the poverty mapping from the census, and currently a team is working on the data so that reports could be prepared around this area relating to poverty, which is in relationship to the small area mapping as you're talking about. Yeah, with sourcing data relating to people's income and earnings is not usually very easy, because people are not always prepared to reveal what they actually earned. I mean, although they may give you information, but then they don't want to come out with the actual or the exact. So these are some of the challenges, but then these are the two sources we are going to use to sort of come out with a small area estimation around poverty for Ghana. Thank you.
Thank you. I will go on to Senegal, but just before I go on to Senegal, I was also looking at the capacity-related issue for deploying the SAE. I know a number of nations, particularly those countries that are in the planning phase for undertaking the census operation in their countries, are also looking to using the methodology. So what does capacity development look like as an opportunity for nations that are hoping to use this method? Both from Chen and at Ghana, how are you addressing the issue of capacity with respect to the use or deployment of this particular method? Over to you both. Chen, you may want to start, and Vitus can come in later.
Sorry, is that the question for me?
Yes,
The
about
capacity?
how yes, you know, strengthening capacity for nations to use that method. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So we actually had worked a lot, and then we also talked to many countries, asked them what are the most effective ways of capacity building. So there has been a lot of experiments in countries. I think more or less every country has done it at least once, especially under the poverty mapping support from the World Bank. But very few countries were able actually to pick up the learning from there and then do it on their own. So, and under the toolkit, I'm going to advocate for that. There is a section on capacity building. We've talked to countries and asked them exactly what they've done that made them successful in moving ahead by doing them self and regularly. So they're involved, of course, a lot of really the consultants there going there to provide guidance instead of doing things for them. So that has been going on. There is a lot of discussion, not a lot, but a big section on the capacity building under the toolkit. What works, what didn't work.
Okay, thank you. And I can see it dropped in a couple of
maybe
minutes.
if I also just can add quickly, because under the Data for Now initiative, we also support quite a lot of countries with smaller estimation work. So it's been work going on in Colombia, in Bangladesh, and we're also planning it for Senegal, and a few other countries with funding from the British government. So there's actually, it's one of the areas where we already have been doing a lot from UNSD side under the Data for Now umbrella as well, just to briefly add this.
Yeah, thanks, Viveka. I know time is fast spent. Let me just quickly go on to our friends in Senegal, Mamadou and Gora. You know, fantastic work that's ongoing, and the collaboration that's also been advancing using, you know, non-traditional data source in monitoring environmental indicators. So, Mamadou, what do you think is one of the greatest challenge in the adaptation of the sea for, you know, environmental accounting within the stakeholder groups in Senegal at the moment? Yeah, some translation from Mamadou. And Gora, while you're still waiting, while we're waiting to hear from Mamadou, Gora, what is the current effort to keep building capacity at the national level? I know that the Ministry of Environment is at the forefront of, you know, monitoring environmental indicators. So what are some of the current efforts at building national capacity in using Earth observation, you know, technology and data, of course, to monitor the environment? So either of you could come on, Gora or Mamadou. Can anyone hear them?
Maybe Francois can help with the translation quickly, because they may not have understood.
Yeah, Francois. Okay. Francois, are you able to help to quickly translate?
Yes, Victor. But I don't, there's no, maybe I just go like as you speak. Yeah.
Okay, let's just take one question because of time. The question is, how do we, you know, what is the current effort at building national capacity for using both the sea platform or the various Earth observation platforms that are being used within DPB to build capacity in the use of these, you know, new approaches for monitoring the environment? What are their capacity building plans and efforts?
Alors, c'est de savoir quels sont vos plans en ce qui concerne le renforcement des capacités dans l'utilisation de ces outils, en ce qui concerne la comptabilité, disons, du capital naturel. Quels sont les plans en ce qui concerne les formations, quelles sont vos capacités pour procéder à cela avec l'utilisation des nouveaux outils?
Voilà, donc merci beaucoup. Donc, pour le Sénégal, depuis le début du projet, donc en tout cas depuis le début du projet, on a travaillé avec la division des statistiques des Nations Unies. Donc, ils nous accompagnent pour l'élaboration des comptes et l'utilisation des nouveaux outils comme Aries Fossea. Ils ont mis...
Allez-y, allez-y. Donc, peut-être je vais faire le sommet. Sinon, je voulais traduire au fur et à mesure.
Voilà. Ils ont mis, en tout cas, ils nous ont mis en rapport avec Alessio qui est au Bussusuri, Basque Center for Climate Change. Donc, ils nous ont formés sur ces nouveaux outils-là. Donc, comment on a procédé?
Ok, je vais aller avec ça. Yeah, so since we started working on the CEA, we benefited from the huge support from UNSD, training us, helping us to create accounts, and also the use of those the new tools that we are going to use. So they've connected us with BCC3, who is helping us to. Allez-y, s'il vous plaît.
Voilà, voilà. Maintenant, ce qu'on a fait dans un premier temps, on a organisé un atelier en présentiel au Sénégal avec la participation de UNSD et de Bussusuri. Ensuite, chaque jeudi, on fait une séance de renforcement de capacité tous les jeudis, donc depuis le mois de novembre, et on peine, en tout cas, on vient de finir la formation, et aujourd'hui, on est capable d'utiliser Aries online et Aries local. Voilà, c'est comme ça qu'on procède.
Avec l'aide de UNSD et de BC3, oh sorry, the help of UNSD and BC3, have benefited from a training, a kind of mentoring and a training every week, every Thursday. They kind of refresh us and also build up capacity on this. Today we have a perfect understanding of RS3 that we are using, thanks to them.
Thank you so much, Mohamedou and Gora, and of course, Chen from the UNSD. So I hand over back to Rebecca. Thank you.
Introduce two speakers who will present together. I think it's also really showcasing how statistics offices and partners from ministries are working together to implement work. So with this, I'd like to hand over to Omar Saidu from Ghana Statistical Service and Kwame Fredua, sorry if I didn't pronounce it correctly, from the Environmental Protection Agency in Ghana. They will be speaking about how citizen science is helping strengthening measurement of marine litter. Over to you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Hello.
Hello, we can hear you, and I see that you're also in the process of sharing your screen. And I can see the presentation now.
So thank you very much. Yeah, so I would take the first few slides, and Kwame would come in from the sixth slide. Now, our motivation around leveraging non-traditional data sources was drawn out of the fact that in 2016, we did an assessment to understand the capacity of Ghana in monitoring the SDGs. And as a result, we identified that if we go business as usual, there was no way our data systems could provide us the needed data. So with the support of GPSDD in 2017, we organized a data roadmap forum that identified three key priorities for by exploring the use of new sources of data, strengthening the data ecosystem by engaging with all producers and intermediaries and users, and encouraging the use of data, because if you do not connect data to decision making, then you do not meet the needs of the users. So that was our
Omar, you're breaking up a bit, so I'm wondering if you should turn off your video maybe
then our
to
second
reduce.
motivation was in the fact that and so sorry, I hope it's better now. So in 2019, we had opportunity of our statistical law being revised, giving the Ghana Statistical Service a greater mandate around coordination and to provide leadership and direction to the line ministries and the districts and other statutory bodies in the production of official statistics in Ghana. And in that legal mandate, the inclusion of big data as a valid input for the production of official statistics was also underscored. Then we had identified through the emerging research, and especially in our case, that we started piloting the use of citizen-generated data for the production of non-traditional data. And that gave us a sense that we could look at other non-traditional data opportunities. And so we saw that there was a systematic review mapping of citizens, and this led to us partnering with ISA and then the UNEP on the citizen science for SDGs pilot project on marine litter. Now, this was largely due to the fact that in our first SDG report in 2018, which was the basis for our VNR report in 2019, only one indicator each were reported for goals 13, 14, and 15. And that was a worry for us, and realizing that a lot of these indicators would require data from from outside our traditional data sources. Of course, we did also identify some of the indicators that have been produced. However, they are not frequently produced, and so they need to look for alternative data sources to fill in the gaps. And as I indicated previously, then the use of the non-traditional data sources. Now, so we understood that Ghana's ocean faces excessive pollution of the beaches and dumping of waste. And in line with the UN conventions and laws of the seas, Ghana passed 6 main laws and acts to regulate marine activities in the country. And that led gradually to Ghana being the first African country to join the Global Plastic Action Partnership in October 2019, with the president of Ghana pledging zero leakage of plastics into the ocean and waterways. And we also realized that there was a growing beach cleanup community in Ghana. And between 2015 and 2018, there were 25 cleanups with over 7,000 volunteers. And these were some of the reasons we thought this was an important area to look at. Now, so we realized that our ability to harness the existing partnership was very important, and so use the existing partnership to look at the possibility of measuring SDG indicator 1411B, which is marine litter. So we organized a policy roundtable, brought together some of the line ministries, people from academia and civil society organizations to agree on exploring citizen science methodologies and incorporating this in their ocean plans. And so we realized that for a decade, beach cleanups have been happening on a large scale across the coastline of Ghana. And the leading NGOs, Smart Nature Freaks Youth Volunteer Forum, had been doing that. And since 2015, they have used the ICC Ocean conservancy methodology collect huge volumes of data, and especially Plastic Punch, one of those NGOs, had customized their own data collection to nationalize the taxonomy of items collected. And as I indicated, international coastline cleanup uses data cards and apps, and the app is Clean Swells, to track marine litter with an emphasis on plastics, single-use plastics debris items. So the data is recorded includes location, the number of participants, the weight or an estimate of the weight of the debris that are being collected, and the distance that they have covered. So these were very useful, and you can find this in the TIES database. So these were the basis for us to begin our work together with the line ministries and the other stakeholders to use the marine litter cleanup data to compute indicator 1411B. So Kwame will take on from here and give a sense of the approach that we use. So Kwame, over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Omar, for that presentation. And good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everybody on this call. And so I'm just going to continue from where Omar left off, and I'm going to focus mainly on the processes that we followed basically on this activity. So first thing basically we committed ourselves to doing was to focus on mapping the various priorities and instruments, and by that we needed to look at what kinds of SDG indicators were of interest to us as a country. So this was done with leadership by the Ghana Statistical Service, and also with support and working together with IIASA, International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis. We worked with Dilek on that work, and the objective was to try and get connected onto some relevant initiatives that were already ongoing, and then tap into some off-the-shelf tools that were cost-effective for us to use without necessarily incurring so much cost burden. And the second thing was to also be able to establish mechanisms to ensure effective coordination around data collection. So as Omar mentioned, there was an existing arrangement already. There were some CSOs and NGOs in country that had done some work around beach cleanups and had generated tons of information. And the challenge was that the scale of use of that information within NGOs and CSOs was quite low. And so when we came together working with the Wilson Center in the States, US, and then the Oceans Conservancy, we tried to put together all the information that we had been collected in country by various organizations. And then that was leveraged on. There were a series of workshops that we had to organize, of course, with various stakeholders, CSOs, government, academia, and then other partners. And I must say that the United Nations Environment Program, UNEP, was very instrumental with trying to help and support us with reviewing the methodology that we needed to adopt to measure SDG 14.1.1b. And then the fourth step, not the last, sorry, was to institute mechanisms for validation, which is very key. Citizens science data. This was a new area, and relevant government agencies needed to apprise themselves with the standardization, the methodology, and issues of quality assurance and all of that to ensure that what has been generated or what we intend to report on was very reliable information. So I think UNEP supported us in this area, and then we're able to do that. So EPA led that validation work, and that was what we did on that front. The other thing also we focused on was to try and leverage on existing data, like I said, and this was basically
Hello, Kwame. Hello. Hello.
I can't hear him either. Are you able to continue until we have him back, Omar?
Okay. Yes. So a lot of work was done in terms of the data validation between the Ghana Statistical Service, the Environmental Protection Agency, UN Environment Program, and ISA, we validated the data, and by September 2021, we had finalized this and submitted the data to UNEP, which is the custodian for that indicator, and got 1411B using the new methodology that had been prepared by the global database. So the results of this also realized that this provides information collected had been previously disseminated by the CSOs who collected it, but there wasn't previously as the other CSOs in the
I'm now also not hearing you, Omar. Just checking. I think Omar may have lost connection entirely. But I see maybe Kwame is back. Yes. Kwame,
yes.
can you? Yes, great. So
Okay, thank you. Apologies for that pause in connectivity. So I'm going to just continue from where Omar was had taken it from. So quickly, the main lesson for us was to make sure that we're not reinventing the wheel or duplicating efforts, because we realized that it would be cost effective to go with a time and a resource less intensive process. So the CleanSwell app that was already in use by Ocean Conservancy was very helpful in this regard. So we tapped into that resource and we were able to get as much information as possible. One thing again we want to share with colleagues on this call is the vital nature or the significance of building that multi-stakeholder partnerships around data. Because like I mentioned earlier on, citizen science data is the new kid on the block. And as much as possible, build trust. And I think that working together with various stakeholders around these data issues was one of the keys to success for us. Currently, what Ghana intends to do is to be able to use the data from the marine litter work to inform the formulation of an integrated marine and coastal management policy. It's just about starting. And also Ghana is about to present its second VNR report to the UN this year. And citizen science generated data, specifically in relation to SDG 14.1.1b, is going to feature in that global report. And so I think that there's so much to look forward to when it comes to using citizen science generated data to augment the traditional or conventional sources of data within our statistical system. So I don't know if Umar is on and if he wants to add a few things, but from my end, I think this is what I want to share. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Kwame, I think that is all. Thank you. Rebecca, back over to you again.
Thank you so much to both of you and for another great presentation. I think what is really also something worth highlighting, and which you also mentioned yourself from this, is how you also reacted to real needs in the country for information about this, and how you found ways using innovative methods and tools to try and respond to those information needs. So thank you so much. I'll now move over to our last speaker, who is Rifa Rufiadi from the Statistics Office of Indonesia, who will be sharing with us about the use of mobile positioning data to measure tourism statistics. And apologies for having you speak so late in your day, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Kwame, you have to stop screen sharing.
Yes, we can hear you, so I agree. If the colleague from Ghana can stop screen sharing and allow our colleague from Indonesia to do it instead, that would be great.
May kindly stop the sharing.
Mr. Rifa Rufiadi, are you able to start sharing even though the other screen is still being shared?
No, I think I already sent my presentation to you.
Ah.
You will share the all from me.
It's up to you. We can also share the screen for you if that is your preference.
I think it's better from you in case bad connection maybe.
Okay. Faryal, can I ask you to share?
Yes, I can share it. Give me a second, please. All right, let me know if you're able to see it.
Yes, I am.
Please go ahead, Rifa.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. It's always morning for me. I'm Rifa Rufiadi. I'm responsible for tourism statistics in BPS Statistics Indonesia. So this morning I would like to share our experience using mobile phone data to capture tourism in Indonesia. Please next. Please. Okay. As we know that tourism data are used in many areas, including SDGs. The source of data could be household survey, administration data, or any other source such as big data. So go please, next. Next, please. Okay, first time we would like to share about how we calculate, how we capture the domestic tourism. As Indonesia is an archipelago country that has more than 17,000 islands. We have 540 regency, so many population which make it not easy to collect data. So please, next. Next, please. Collecting data in remote area, not before. Collecting data in a remote area are expensive and difficult, mostly for transportation. Sometimes also get resistance from respondent. Currently, there are about 285.8 mobile phone subscribers from the 3 largest MNO company, which need about 1.4 terabyte space per year to cover about 60 million records. Next. Next. Mobile phone data is created by itself when the mobile phone switch on. No, before the mobile phone is it will give you data about location, time, which is actually it's garbage for MNOs, and it just takes space, but it is golden data for statistician. So this is the solution for someone who wants to know about mobility, such as tourism. There are 2 types of mobile phone data, domestic and roaming. In domestic data, we have timestamp, long let, which can be converted to area such as villages, which while in roaming data, we only have timestamp and visiting country. MPD data source could be next, please. Charging data, it's LBA, UPC. Based on these types of data, next, please. We identify a subscriber homework. Next, please. So based on this type of data, we identify subscriber home, subscriber workplace, and second home, and other location that regularly visited. ITRS call it as usual environment. The tourist trip will the trip that moving out of usual environment. After we know that someone has made tourism trip, then we send a link to fill a questionnaire about spending on the selected trip. Since the data only comes, next, please. Next, please. Yep. Next, please. Please, next. Okay, since the data only came from 1 out of 5 MNO, then we estimate other MNO subscribers trip and also estimate the one who did not use mobile phone while having trip. This information is provided from Social Economy Household Survey. In the same step, we can get 2 data set at once, domestic tourism and commuter. Since commuter is not tourism, but similar activity, commuting data could be used for delineating metropolitan area. So next, please. Now I'm going to talk about inbound tourism data. Indonesian rely on immigration record. It's from immigration data we get nationality, like stay, sex, age. It's recorded from 37 airports and 55 cross-border gates. However, next, to calculating the inbound and outbound data. However, it was under coverage since not all gates have immigration services. It has been proved that MPD roaming data in the border could recover the weakness of administration data. Okay, next. So the MPD is not tourism data. So to convert from MPD become tourism data, we calibrate applied using data from border survey using this formula. So next. For MPD in border, we collaborate with the Ministry of Tourism who supporting the budget, and in 2018, we also collaborate with Positium of Estonia, who is the first country using MPD for official statistics. Yeah, next. Please, next. Please, next. Okay, now for outbound traveler before.
Can you say that again, please?
The three for the previous one, the three. Move back. Move back, please.
Which slide would you like me to stay on? The one with the immigration record?
Yeah, this one. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So okay, this one. Because we use immigration data to get outbound traveler, we don't know where is the outbound traveler go. So so when if using MPD, you can get the data where did they go. So based on using MPD, we can see that in 2019 we have there are 174 destination country, and in 2020 we have 173 destination countries. Also, we get the length of stay. So to get the spending on their trip, we send questionnaire when they come back. Okay. Send. Please next. Please next. Next, please. Okay, this is the result of using MPD before. Okay, this one. See in the map above that without MPD, we only can get the province level, but using MPD, we can see that we can get data more lower level. So in the graph also we can see that the green one is the data for 2019, and the red one is data for 2020 when the pandemic is occur. So we can see that in the 2019 the peak one is when this Idul Fitri, then there are so many people travel, but in 2020 the Idul Fitri is very low in May. And also we publish based on this data, we can also publish the tourism statistical tourism satellite account, and also we publish all the tourism statistic. I think next, please. Okay, see the challenge is once you use MPD, so it really highly depend on MNO as the owner of the data. The confidentiality of data make it impossible to get raw data. We work at sandbox that provided by MNO. Also, the procurement for this kind of data is very difficult because it's very rare. And also, we need not all MNO data can be used for MPD because the quality, the way they save the data is not fulfill the standard for using for official statistic. So this is our experience in 10 minutes, maybe. I hope you can get what I said. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rafi. Another great presentation and another example of how innovation can be used to produce better data for statistics production. We'll now move to the last Q&A session, and this session will be moderated by Mariam Rabi from the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, Thematic Research Network on Data and Statistics, SDSN Trends. SDSN Trends, as I said in the beginning, is also one of the core partners of the Data for Now initiative, engaging with many of you as well, and will also be working in particular with Ghana moving forward on the marine litter work. So over to you, Mariam, for the Q&A session.
Thank you, Vibeke. And thank you to the presenters for their very insightful presentations. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself or add your question to the chat, and I'm happy to address it to the presenters. Maybe while we're waiting for questions to come in, I can start with one for Omar and Kwame. Our colleague Rifa mentioned and touched on the concept of combining different data sources. So I wanted to see if maybe Omar and Kwame could share some thoughts on the possibility of combining citizen science data with other non-traditional data sources to provide a more comprehensive mapping of marine litter.
Yeah, hello. Hope you can hear me.
Yes, Omar, we can hear you.
Yeah, so in this particular first instance, we went purely with the data that had been collected during the beach cleanups. But then the idea is to overlay this with geospatial data and some other data sources to see how much more layers of information we are able to compile. For instance, I did mention earlier that we had piloted some other citizen-generated data program, and that one we are currently working on triangulating with administrative data to understand the dynamics and also the issues of data quality. So our initial thought in that is that the citizen-generated data, for instance, provide a more not representative, but more report than the administrative data, because of the issues of people not wanting to report issues like gender-based violence, for instance, whereas using the citizen-generated data, more people report that in the comfort of their homes. And so, yes, we are now moving to that space, and we hope that in the near future, we'll be able to share our learnings from that. Thank you.
Thank you, Omar. Kwame, I don't know if you're still on the line and if you want to add anything to that.
I think Omar's response should suffice for me too. Yes, thank you, Maya.
Perfect. Okay, there's Rifa, there's a question for you in the chat. What is the modality for the NSO with MNO on data sharing of call logs? Any limitation on the use?
I'm trying to answer, but I think it's depend on country. Yeah, in many countries we have different law, different regulation. So in Indonesia case, we have to quote unquote we have to buy to access the data. But in Oman, it's free. It's just can get the data easily, because the king, the sultan, order to MNO to share the data. But in Indonesia case, we have to pay some. It's depend on regulation. Between country to country is different.
Thank you, Rifa. Okay, there's one more question for you. The question is, in case of citizen moving intra-province daily for their daily work, any technique to find out that case?
Okay, there's there's technique for that. So we can define which one their home, which one their work. For whom usually we see the data for years that every night he stay in that location. So we will define that this location is as home. But for work, we can see that this number is always saved from in the daylight. In the day, always in that position. So we can define that this regularly place we will define as work. So that's how we define it. The one who move outside these places, we can consider as a tourism trip.
Thank you.
Is that, yeah, okay.
Thank you so much. I know we're behind on schedule, so as we wait for any final questions, I'm going to add a link to a story map, which is a multimedia kind of interactive tool about the work that Omar and Kwame presented. So it provides an overview of some of the important work that they've done. So I just included that in the chat. And if there aren't any further questions, Viveka, I'm going to hand it over back to you.
Thank you so much, Mariam, and also again to our speakers. We'll now move to a slightly shortened interactive engagement piece for around 10 minutes before we close and talk about next steps at the end, still sticking to the time of ending at 10 a.m. US time. And I'll hand over to Faryal for this activity again from UNSD. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Viveka and Mariam, and all the speakers for sharing your experiences. I hope this has inspired all of you a bit of thinking about what kind of innovative data sources are available within your own countries and what potentially methodologies you can use in terms of filling gaps in your country. So I would open the floor here to all of you here, the participants. If you can raise your hand and share, if anything that you can think of are existing national data sources that you think exist in your country, which could be utilized to estimate indicators or provide data for policy priority needs. We would love to hear from you. So any thoughts, anything you would like to share, something that inspired you from this workshop or any other data source that you have been thinking about that has been or could be used in your country, which has been there but not been utilized? I don't see any hands. Anybody would like to volunteer? Would anybody like to share if they think that any one of these examples that have been shared today could be replicated in their country? Okay, I don't see any raised hands. Okay, so I see Abresh's hand up. Abresh, please go ahead and unmute yourself and share your experience.
Hello.
Yes, Abresh. Abresh, could you try unmuting yourself again? Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so we have been thinking of using or implementing the small area estimation practices. So for that, I think what we have heard from the UNSD, the presentation from UNSD, the group work, I think that's very much interesting for us. We have different data sources, like administrative data and census data, satellite imageries, and also survey data. So we are very much interested to work on that, and I hope we'll refer the different references given by the presenter. And also we'll use all those, and we'll try to implement that small area estimation technique in one of the indicators. We'll discuss which indicator is more appropriate. So that is something which interested me. Actually, all the presentations are very much interesting. They gave us an idea, but we are very much interested on the small area part.
Thank you so much, Abresh, for sharing that. I would also be interested as a follow-up question of what policy priority do you think that this could contribute to? If you're looking at small estimation, you're looking at disaggregation. What is the key thematic area in terms of policy that this could add value to?
Yeah, from our side, I think the small area data, actually data at disaggregated level by geography or by different characteristics are needed in different sectors, in agriculture sector, in also other sectors. Data at lower level, district level is needed, and different data on different characteristics like disability and also age, sex, and other characteristics are needed. So almost disaggregated data is needed in almost all sectors. So we'll discuss and we'll prioritize the specific area based on the availability of the data and also based on the policy needs. So that's what we are discussing internally now. We also want to use the satellite imageries to implement this small area estimation. Recently, we have conducted the cartographic work for population and housing census, and we hope that that will also be helpful to implement. And in our country also, we have different sources locally which we can use the satellite imagery. So we are thinking in all these areas, and I think we'll refine it once we discuss in detail.
Great, thank you so much. I think that's the kind of thought process we're looking forward to. The Data for Now project is, engaging with the policy makers and then looking at what's available in country and seeing what needs to be done with what is available to meet the priority needs. So thank you so much for sharing that. Anybody else would like to share their thoughts or, how Abresh, and this is not something, set in stone what you share, it's just, any inspiration you got from the examples today, we would love to hear from all of you. So maybe perhaps Tunisia would like to share their interest in web scraping and how you think, Bashir, would that be applicable to the policy or priority needs in Tunisia? Would you like to share your thoughts?
Thank you for all representatives for the presentation. The web scraping is it's important for the NSO to have this opportunity to fund the prices of the many items who they don't exist in our survey. So it's very important for us to have this experience in our institute. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bashir, for sharing that. Anybody else who would like to share? Okay, so Rebecca, I'll pass it on to you for a final closing before we wrap up. I think we've had a very long session and a very enriching session, so it would be good to wrap up. Over to you, Rebecca.
Thank you so much, Faryal, and thank you again to everyone who's been staying with us for these 3 hours. We know it's a quite long session, but we hope that you really have enjoyed it and have learned some new elements. We will have the third and final inspiration workshop next week, which will focus on IT architecture and infrastructure. I think Richard, another of our UNSD colleagues, has just shared the link to those of you who will attend that one. We will also be putting, as I've been sharing before, all these recordings and presentations online, and we'll be sharing them through email as well as soon as we have had the chance to put them down, structure them maybe a little bit. So it will be coming in the next days and week. I just can't give you the exact time yet. Also an update for you project countries. We are still not finalized the agreement with Italy, but it seems now to be around the corner. We are still expecting that we would officially start the new project in the beginning of May, but we will continue the engagement with you. And I think we can also start on some of the bilateral exchanges with you now moving forward. Going more into detail based on these inspiration workshops and the initial calls that we had with you all. So there's no doubt really that the project will come through. We just need to sign it to actually have resources available. In today's workshop, we heard 6 examples of innovation. I think 6 very different and really interesting examples. So thanks so much to the speakers and presenters from those examples, everyone who contributed to that. But we have also collected a number of more examples. We put them together in an Excel sheet and we'll be sharing this as well with you. I think there's quite a lot to have a look at and to consider, and that we can discuss with you in the bilateral exchanges as well. And also, again, to thank our partners in the work. While this is a session that is led by UNSD and is linked to a concrete project, there's also a lot of other activities that are going on under the Data for Now umbrella, and we hope that we really will be able to support as many countries as possible through the joint engagement. And in relation to that, some of you may also have seen in the chat that I put a link to training pages of our Data for Now initiative. As of now, there's not too many materials there, but we really hope to share more materials now that we expand the engagement to allow you to also really try and use what others have been doing and explore those. Yeah, and I think I can just again close by thanking you all for participating, thanking again our speakers, thanking our moderators and also our translator for being here and helping us in making this session and workshop successful. And I also want to thank my colleagues from UNSD, all the ones that have been involved who have maybe not spoken: Richard, Jaspreet, Lena, Louis, Samrat, and others. So thanks so much to all of you and to everyone again. With that, I want to wish you a good rest of the day or a good night for those of you where it's already very late. Thanks so much for staying with us, and we're looking forward to the continuation.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you very much. See you next week.
See you next week.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.